Greetings, my name is Rudimentary Rob. Welcome back to my Raft series. Today we've got a little bit of, we'll say, upgrades, harvesting, all the usual shenanigans that we tend to get up to in our raft and on our raft and beside our raft. So, yeah, let's get all strapped in, grab your favourite, shark-resistant swim fins, and yeah, let's get stuck into it. Alright, today's episode, you may notice, a little bit shorter. It's just kind of worked out that way. I started with a bit over an hour's worth of footage, but I just had so much fluffing around, trying to rearrange things, do things, set things up, pull them back down again. All that kind of stuff that really didn't demonstrate anything particularly useful. So I ended up cutting a good chunk of it, and I sped up quite a bit of the boring stuff as well, and we ended up with this 20-minute episode today. So that's mostly what's going on. Now, we are at this little island that we pulled up to at the end of the previous episode. We're just doing our usual tree audit on these small islands. If there is a tree, we chop it down and take its wood. We've got plenty of flowers, so we don't need any of those, which just leaves us with the fruit. We are very, very interested in collecting all of the fruit, and that is in fact what we've done. We've just done a final lap of the island just to make sure we haven't missed anything. And because we fluffed getting out of the water there, we tried it again. I was a bit worried that the shark would have time to have a nibble, but it turns out I was just a little bit too quick for him. Now, we're back on board here, and I haven't been particularly happy with our farm setup. Now, originally we only had these couple of plots in this corner, and that was enough just for when all I had to feed was myself. But we're in a situation now where we need to gear up towards having enough food left over to produce fuel with. So last episode I didn't really show you what I did, but essentially that thing that I just pulled down, I put that up last episode. I did grow one round of crops in it, but I sort of knew I wasn't really that happy with it, and I was going to rework it. That said, though, the reason for reworking it was to set it up so that I could have a sprinkler efficiently water the crops. So similar sort of layout, just set up better and in a better position so a sprinkler could deal with watering it. But minor spoiler, the setup that I end up doing here is not perfect. I did this setup that we're going through this episode on the basis that, the sprinkler area, so the area it waters, is a 3x3 grid. But the bit that I hadn't remembered correctly was that the sprinkler doesn't go in the middle of it. So the square that the sprinkler sits in, it doesn't water that because obviously the sprinkler is there. There's nothing to grow because the sprinkler is there. It's actually in the middle of one of the sides. So essentially, if you visualize the sprinkler pointing out into the garden area, the sprinkler needs to sit in the middle with its back outside of the plot, facing towards the middle of the plot. And so it will have one plot to the right, one plot to the left, and then there's a 3x2 arrangement of squares or plots in front of it, which is centered and in a landscape orientation. Now, I don't manage to fix this in this episode, but I haven't recorded the next episode, but this is one thing I will fix up as soon as I can in the next episode. But essentially, it's not immediately intuitive with the sprinkler exactly what the water spray is. And I should have taken a hint from when you set it up, the sprinkler does point in a specific direction rather than just pointing up. And that should have been my clue that I didn't quite have it right. So the way I'm setting this up is going to be okay. It won't water anything that's behind it, and that's what I messed up. So what I'll do next episode is I'll pick that sprinkler up from where it is. I'll move it one square backwards, so that is towards the outside edge of the boat in that direction. And the crop that's there at the moment will get moved into the space where the sprinkler came from. So I'm just going to swap 2 plots worth of space just to make that work. Now, this is also going to need to happen in the animal menagerie upstairs, because I once again left the one spot where there's no grass plot. I've left that in the middle when it needs to be at one edge. And what I'll do is I'll probably leave the plot where the sprinkler goes. I'll leave it at the front wall where it's easy to access, and then it will face towards the back wall of the animal enclosure, and then it'll have the 8 plots around it in its frontal arc. But look, I'll go into all of that in more detail when I actually do the fix-up. For the moment, I've sped all this up just to show you where I'm at with my gardens. For the most part, most of this is not going to change. Now, there's a reason why I'm putting my garden here. It's because it's immediately underneath where the sprinkler is going to be for the animals. And the significance of that is I'm doing a little experiment here. I wanted to see if the water, when it activates the sprinkler upstairs, whether any of it comes through onto the bottom plots. And I can't remember if I've included it in this, but long story short, it does. Like, it doesn't affect these medium plots on the deck level, but it did water the ones that are hanging from the roof, which I found to be quite interesting. Now, it might just be because where I put the sprinkler, there were not plots, like it wasn't lined up with the plots properly. And so I think what's happened is the overthrow of water has gone through into watering these plots downstairs. Now, I'll once I've got everything fixed, I'll do a bit of a test and confirm, because I need to know. Because this sprinkler didn't seem to be watering the hanging ones. And again, that might just have been because I didn't have things lined up properly. And if that's all it is, I'm going to resolve all of that next episode. Anyway, that was a very substantial ramble. Hopefully most of it made sense. If it didn't, apologies for that. Many things should become clearer in the next episode. In the meantime, we're going to finish setting up this garden. We're going to get all of the plots planted. So in the small hanging ones, we can only grow small crops, so potatoes or beets. And the bottom ones, I've primarily got those in so that I can grow pineapples and watermelons. However, as I run out of seeds for those, I'll just plant potatoes in them as well. The goal here is that the bulk of this crop is going to end up going towards making fuel. And if this setup works, I'll probably end up duplicating it so that I can get more crops if I need to. I'm not sure how that's going to work with my fuel usage at the moment. In the short term, I'm going to still rely on sales a fair bit. But from time to time, it may become necessary. It may become necessary to use the motors, and I just want a reliable setup that I can refuel the fuel tank reasonably efficiently once I've actually got a fuel tank. So anyway, a lot of stuff that hasn't happened yet. Once I come up with a final plan, I'll let you guys know what that plan actually is. Now, we've just about finished our messing around downstairs, and we're now looking at getting the sprinkler itself ready. So we've got all the gardens installed. We're going to install a battery. The sprinkler itself is full of water, and if you wait a moment, it will trigger, boom, and it just watered all of the crops that were in front of it, and it didn't water the one behind. And that's great. And you can see the little water gauge there. It only used 1 unit of water to water the crops in front, but you can also see it did not water any of the hanging plots. They're all still just the default brown. They haven't gone dark to indicate they're watered. So that tells me that using that setup the way it is not going to work just off that sprinkler. So we're upstairs here, and other than Rudy randomly getting in the way when I'm trying to set my sprinkler up, we're setting it up in the middle. Again, it's not quite in the right spot, so we'll address that next episode. We've got some water in it. We've got some battery in it. We'll just grab a couple of the clucker's eggs, and let's see how we go with trying to get some water out of our sprinkler system. Alright, as it turns out, I didn't really hang around to fine-tune the sprinkler setup for the animals. Given what I've already said, it's probably not going to matter at this stage because I'm going to end up moving things around. So, with all of that slightly dull gardening stuff out of the way, we move to the concern about all of these lovely resources that we haven't pillaged from the reef around this island. So the usual rules apply with that. If we want to be able to be as thorough as possible, we have to have a chat with Bruce and tell him the plan. Now, Bruce is never happy to hear the plan, and he usually does put up a bit of resistance, but we've kind of got the hang of dealing with Bruce and his reluctance to adhere to the plan, and consequently, we're going to help Bruce move on to somewhere for a while that isn't going to bother us, so that we can get on with the job at hand. Alright, and as I hinted at in a previous episode, we're not gathering very much of the resources off this reef. In fact, I did a bit of an audit, and we've got a bucket load of sand and then some for both clay and sand. So we're pretty much going to be skipping those. We're going to keep gathering scrap though, because there's a few things coming up that are going to need more than a couple of nails. So we're going to want to make sure we've probably got a lot more scrap than what we have now. So we're going to keep collecting scrap. We're going to keep collecting copper and iron, even though we already have an absolute bucket load of copper. I think we've got must be close to 3 stacks that we haven't smelted yet, plus we got a bit over a stack that is smelted. That does seem like a bucket load, but again, I kind of know some of the stuff that's coming up is going to need a fair bit of copper, so We're going to be gathering both metal types with a lot of vigor, in addition to the scrap that we're already gathering. So now with this reef on this island, it's a bit of a pain. Because it's got all these little rocks that stick up, and quite a lot of them do actually have ore deposits on them. So there's a lot of swimming around and sort of checking all sides of each of the sticky uppy rocks to make sure I'm not missing any. And we kind of did okay, but as far as small islands go, I'm going to rate this one probably only about average for the amount of metal. Like it had a decent amount of copper, but it didn't really have anything other than maybe an average amount of the iron style or the metal ore. That said though, would I stop at one of these again? Sure. Like all the metal is good. All of the scrap is good. All of the seaweed is good. Yep. We're not going to say no to any of that. It doesn't matter where it is. Alright, and that marks the return of Bruce. So we're just having a quick once over just to make sure we haven't missed anything that we really want. And then we're just going to make our way back to the raft. And yeah, we'll take stock on what our spoils were from this pillaging expedition. Alright, well that was actually a pretty good gathering run on the island. We made out like a bit of a trooper, to be honest. The metal amount was decent, but I've definitely seen better on these smaller islands. So that pretty much concludes our efforts for this episode. Yeah, words, they're a thing I forget sometimes. So given this is the end of the episode, feel free to give me a thumbs up and to subscribe if you are not already subscribed. And until next time, my name is Rudimentary Rob. Thank you very much for watching, and make sure you have an absolutely fantastic day.